Hey Scott, today we're going to talk about a Welsh movie called The Feast made in 2021. It's a little bit different in that it involves some local folklore apparently. My reaction initially was that I had a little trouble following what the story was. As we've had previous discussions about this movie, and I'm kind of curious of how much of that was because I don't know the folklore, and maybe it would be more relevant. What did you think about this movie? What worked for you?
So I'm going to tell you something. What worked for me in this film, I'm torn on this film. I really am. For the first time in a while in watching a movie, I'm kind of torn with this one. Did I like it? Did I not like it? What I loved about it was the cinematography. I loved the house that it was filmed in from the out. Maybe that wasn't where the inside of it was filmed at, but the outside of it was this. What I really liked about that was it was this modern home in folklore, right? So it was like, hey, here's this modern house that can't be affected by the past, but it is. I liked the interior shots. This is another one of those films, Synthol, that is a low budget film that was filmed mostly within the house, within a location. There's some outside shots, but they're very minimal. So I really enjoyed the cinematography. I really enjoyed, I liked the music, the buildup, there was tension. Where this film loses me, Synthol, is that, the premise of this movie is it's basically this young lady comes in that they hire to be a server for this elite group, right? So it's a family, and one family has been doing very well. The other family that comes in to join in this feast, they're trying to convince to do the same thing that they're doing, right? And it has to do with the land around here. And I don't want to go into depth in that so for me, I really enjoyed the beginning of this film, the tension of this film. There are some creepy scenes with this, young lady doing very despicable things to people's food, right? That just, it's fast food horror that you hear about, right? People spitting in the food, vomiting, that kind of stuff. And I just thought that creep factor was great. It never paid off.
Practical effects are really well done. There were some really good, intense creep factor moments earlier in the movie that made you interested in wanting to figure out what's going on. There's some symbolism involved in the movie too that the characters aren't aware of. And so the director did a good job in building tension and building mystery, and did a good job with, in many cases, perhaps over the top practical effects that ultimately I thought didn't really contribute to the story. But my problem with the movie was that I had a lot of trouble following the plot, and maybe it is because I don't know the local folklore, but ultimately I saw it twice, and as we've discussed in the past, you've got a good point that you made in the past, that seeing a movie more than once is not necessarily a bad thing. We've talked about a couple of them. Yellow Brick Road is I love that I had to see twice, and even then I'm not really sure I understood everything going on. I loved it. This one I saw twice, and then I had to go look at Wikipedia and figure out what the plot was, and that helped me understand a little bit better. So because I had trouble following it, I thought really it fell apart in the second half of the movie. So ultimately, because of those reasons, it didn't really work for me.
Well, and so Simple, that's what I came back to was, and if I was watching this, and this is a Welsh film, the director Lee Haven Jones. This is, and I come back to, I wonder if I was Welsh, if I would have seen this in a different light, right? Is this a lore that is something that everybody knows about there? The challenge for me being in the States, I don't know any of that lore. So the build up to it and the payout at the end, and there are some, for those of you who like gory films, this is a good one. There's some great gory moments in it, especially as we come to the end. The payoff didn't work for me because it was, I didn't really have that much emotional connection with the characters. So there was no real emotional buildup in the characters and things like that, Simple, to get me to the point where I was like going, oh no. And because I didn't understand the lore, I didn't have an emotional connection with any of the characters. By the time the ending comes around and you get the surprise, right, which is the ta-da, you're kind of like, ta-da. It just didn't pan out for me. What was your thoughts on the acting in this?
I thought that was effective in moments, but overall, I thought the acting was a little over the top and a bit disconnected, and I don't think it flowed well and
Yeah.
contributed to the story. So the acting didn't quite hit home for me. I had trouble figuring out the motivation for the characters, and ultimately, this is a socially conscious message involved,
Yes.
and eventually you start understanding exactly what's going on, but I don't think the acting really worked ultimately for those reasons.
So, Cynthia, what I noticed in the acting, and I know you and I talked about this before, but it felt like a play. It felt like I was going from, all right, we're in scene one, and then scene two, and it didn't feel the word I'm looking for is cohesive. The acting wasn't cohesive through the movie. It didn't feel connected at times.
Yeah, that's actually a very good point in that it does feel like a multi-part stage play, and
Yeah.
we're disconnected and disjointed, and the performances didn't really continuity is a good word. I don't think it ultimately flowed, and it's a good attempt. And the director, incidentally, Lee Haven Jones, and the writer Roger Williams, they don't have a lot of credits to their name, so they're relatively new to movies.
Yeah.
There's also to horror. I thought there were a lot of good elements, but I don't
Yes.
believe that the director ultimately is able to pull a cohesive performance out of his actors.
I would agree. So, Cynthia, would you recommend this film to people?
So it's a really good question. My initial reaction is not. It has elements of it that I think those of us who have a deep interest in horror, especially as you pointed out, limited sets, limited scenes, and doing a lot with.
Yeah.
There's some good characteristics that made it interesting to watch. And if I'd known the folklore, maybe it would have hit me a little bit more than it did, and I would have understood it a little bit better. But ultimately, because the story continuity wasn't there, and I had trouble following it, because the performances didn't really hit for me and weren't cohesive in advancing the story. And I thought a lot of the violence was significantly over the top and didn't really contribute to the story other than a shock factor. I don't think I recommend the movie.
I'm torn on this one, Cynthia. There's a part of me that wants to go, you should watch this because for low budget, I was impressed with some of the cinematography. I was impressed with that slow buildup of tension that kind of get in there. I think it lost it towards the end. So this is the like I said at the beginning, this is one of those films I'm really torn to tell watchers whether to watch it or not. What I would say is there are some redeeming factors in this film that I just really love. I actually, Cynthia, what I'll say is this. I actually enjoyed the first 3/4 of this film. It was the last quarter of the film where everything gets really violent, and you didn't build me up to that. I didn't feel any connection to that. I didn't understand the lore. I didn't know why any of this was happening. It was just boom, and it's just done. And that, there was nobody talking about really, oh, you shouldn't do this because of X, Y, and Z. And oh my gosh, there was really no hints of that. Even in the dinner conversation, that doesn't happen until the last quarter of the film when some of the violence has already taken place. So you don't even know.
Yeah, I think the violence started to take center stage near the end of the movie and took away from the story. I would definitely watch more by this writer and this director.
I think so, yeah.
I think that promised this particular movie is what didn't really click for me.
Yeah. Well, Cynthia, as always, it was a lot of fun talking to you about this film, and I can't wait till next time.
Looking forward to next time.